Minyo Kim stepped through the massive doors of the council chamber and stopped. The room was bigger than anything he had ever seen. The ceiling stretched so high that he could barely see the top. Hundreds of different seats filled the space, each one made for a different type of alien body. Some seats floated in the air for creatures with wings. Others were pools of water for the fish-like beings. There were metal perches for the bird people and soft cushions for the furry ones. In the center of it all was a strange, glowing platform where the council chair would sit. "Remember the rules," Captain Ji-won Park whispered behind him. She was his military advisor and bodyguard. "We sit when we enter. Everyone else waits." Dr. Soman Lee nodded. She carried her medical scanner and notepad. As the team's scientist, she wanted to study all the different alien species they would meet today. "I still don't understand why we get special treatment," she said quietly. Minho walked toward the human section. Their seats were simple but comfortable, made of earth materials that felt familiar. As he sat down, he heard angry sounds from around the room. Many aliens were making upset noises in their own languages. The first to speak up was a tall red creature with 4 arms and spikes on his back. This was War Prime Zethos of the Kethrani people. His voice was deep and angry. "This is wrong," he shouted. "Why do the humans get to sit while we must stand and wait? Are they better than us?" Other aliens joined in the complaints. The crystal beings made high singing sounds that hurt Minho's ears. Some of the furry creatures growled. The bird people chirped angrily and flapped their wings. Minho felt uncomfortable. He had not asked for this special treatment. The council had told them these were the rules, but nobody had explained why. He looked around at all the different aliens who had to stand and wait. Near the water section, he saw a blue-green creature that looked like it was having trouble. Its name was Fluvius, from the Murdani people. It wore a special suit filled with water, but the suit looked heavy. Fluvius was shaking a little bit. In another area, a small insect-like being was shifting from foot to foot. This was Skitter 6, from the Chitik people. He had 6 thin legs, but 2 of them seemed to be bent in a strange way. Dr. Samin Lee was watching everyone too. She held her scanner low so others could not see it, but she was taking readings of all the aliens in the room. Her face showed worry as she looked at the results. "Captain Park," she whispered, "something is not right here. My scanner shows that many of these beings are in pain or stress." Ji-won Park frowned. She was trained to notice when people were suffering. Looking around the room, she could see it too. Many of the aliens were breathing hard. Some were sweating or shaking. A few looked like they might fall over. "How long do they have to stand?" Ji-won asked. Minho checked his information pad. "The ceremony before the meeting can last 2 hours. Then the meeting itself might go for 4 or 5 hours more." 7 hours of standing? Dr. Lee said with shock. "Some of these species don't look like they can handle that." Just then, a deep sound filled the room. It was like a bell, but deeper and longer. This meant the high speaker was coming. All around the chamber, the aliens stood up straighter, even though it clearly hurt many of them. The doors at the far end opened and High Speaker Kethnal entered. He was ancient, even by the standards of his long-lived people, the Veltar. His skin was pale blue and seemed to glow softly. He moved slowly through the air, floating rather than walking. As Kethnal took his place on the glowing platform, he began to change positions. This was the traditional meditation pose that started every council meeting. His body became very still and his eyes closed. Only after he finished this pose could the other aliens sit down, but the humans were already sitting. They had been sitting since they arrived. Minho felt all the angry looks directed at him and his team. He wanted to stand up and wait like everyone else, but the council rules said humans must sit immediately when they entered. War Prime Zethos was getting more angry. His red skin was turning darker, and his spikes were standing up higher. "This is an insult to all of us," he said loudly. "The humans think they are too good to follow our sacred traditions." Some of the other aliens agreed with him. The crystal beings sang louder, creating a sound that made the drinking glasses on nearby tables crack and break. The bird people's angry chirping grew so loud that it echoed off the walls. Minho stood up slowly. The room became quiet. "War Prime Zethos," he said in a calm voice. "We do not think we are better than anyone. We follow the rules that the council gave us. If these rules are wrong, then we should ask the council to change them." "The rules are not wrong," Zethos shouted back. "Your species is wrong. You refuse to show respect to our ways." Dr. Lee was still watching her scanner. A small bird-like alien near the front was starting to sway back and forth. This was Kayla, a young diplomat, from the Zephyrian people. Her legs were shaking and her breathing was fast and shallow. "I think someone is going to collapse," Dr. Lee whispered urgently to Captain Park. Ji-Wan looked where Soman was pointing. She could see that Kayla was in trouble. The young alien's eyes were starting to close, and she was leaning to one side. High, Speaker Kethnol was still in his meditation pose. According to tradition, no one could move or speak until he finished. But Kayla was clearly about to fall over. Minho made a quick decision. "Captain Park, help her," he said quietly. Ji-Wan was already moving. She stepped quickly across the room, ignoring the shocked gasps from other aliens. Just as Kayla started to fall, Ji-Wan caught her in her arms. The room exploded with angry voices. Breaking the meditation ceremony was one of the worst things anyone could do in the council chamber. But Ji-Wan did not care about the rules. She carefully helped Kala to a nearby chair. "She needs water and rest," Dr. Lee said, rushing over with her medical kit. War Prime Zethos was furious. "Now they break our most sacred ceremony. This proves that humans have no respect for anyone but themselves." But High Speaker Kethnol slowly opened his eyes. Instead of being angry, he looked thoughtful. He stared at the humans for a long moment, then at young Kala, who was now breathing better in her chair. "The ceremony will continue," he said in his ancient voice. "All delegates may now take their seats." As the aliens finally sat down, many of them sighed with relief. But the tension in the room was thick. Minho knew this was just the beginning of their problems. Something was not right about these rules, and he was determined to find out what it was. The council meeting had been going for 3 hours when the first break was called. Minho Kim watched as aliens all around the chamber slumped in their seats with relief. Many of them had been standing for most of the session, only sitting during short voting periods. Captain Ji-Wan Park walked over to where Kayla, the young Zephyrian diplomat, was resting. The bird-like alien looked much better now, but her feathers were still ruffled from stress. "How are you feeling?" Ji-Wan asked gently. Kayla's large golden eyes looked up at her. "Much better, thank you. I am sorry for causing trouble during the ceremony." "You did nothing wrong," Ji-Wan said firmly. "Anyone would have trouble standing that long." She paused. "How long do your people usually stand during meetings?" Kayla's head tilted to one side, the way birds do when they are thinking. On our world, we perch on branches or rest on the ground. We fly when we need to move. Standing still like this is very hard for us. Jiwan frowned. Then why does the council make you do it? It is tradition, Kayla said, but she sounded unsure. The High Speaker says it shows respect and discipline. All species must prove they can endure the ceremony. Dr. Soman Lee had been listening to their conversation. She sat down next to them with her scanner in her hand. Kayla, would it be okay if I checked your health? I want to make sure you are really feeling better. Kayla nodded. Dr. Lee ran her scanner over the young alien. The results made her face turn pale. Your leg muscles are damaged, Dr. Lee said with concern. Your heart rate is still too high, and your body temperature dropped dangerously low when you almost fainted. Is that bad? Kayla asked. For a human, it would mean you were seriously hurt, Dr. Lee explained. I need to scan other species to understand what is normal for each of you. During the break, Dr. Lee walked around the chamber with her scanner. She was careful to ask permission first, explaining that she was a medical researcher who wanted to learn about different alien biology. What she found shocked her. Fluvius, the Merdani in the water suit, was suffering from something like dehydration, even though he was surrounded by water. His gills were working too hard to get oxygen from the recycled water in his suit. On my world, we swim constantly, Fluvius explained in his bubbling voice. Moving through water keeps our gills healthy. Standing still like this makes the water in my suit become stale. Skidder 6, the insectoid chitic, had 2 badly swollen legs. His 6 limbs were not designed to hold his body weight in one position for hours. We move always, he clicked in his strange language, which Dr. Lee's translator turned into words. Stand still long brings great pain hurt to leg limbs. Even War Prime Zethos, who had been so angry about human privilege, was hiding his own problems. When Dr. Lee scanned him secretly from across the room, she found that his body temperature was much too high. The Ketharani were built for short, intense fights, not long periods of standing still. Dr. Lee shared her findings with Minho and Jiwan. During the break, "This is terrible," Minho said quietly. "They are all suffering, but they act like it is normal." "Maybe for them it is normal," Jiwan said. "If they have been doing this for hundreds of years, they might think pain is just part of the process." Dr. Lee shook her head. "Some of these readings show real damage. If humans had to stand this long, we would be tired. But these aliens are actually hurting themselves." Minho decided to do some research. He accessed the council database from his seat and began looking up the history of the standing ceremony. Most of the information was easy to find, but some files were marked as restricted. The basic history said that the Respect Through Endurance ceremony started long ago when the council was young. It was meant to prevent violence by making species prove they could control themselves through physical discipline. But Minho found strange gaps in the records. There were medical reports from early council meetings, but many of them were sealed. References to capability assessments and endurance trials appeared in old documents, but the details were hidden. "There is something they are not telling us," Minho told his team. When the break ended, everyone stood up again for another ceremony. This time, Minho watched more carefully. He saw how the aliens moved, how they breathed, how they tried to hide their discomfort. Near the Crystal Beings section, one of them was making a very quiet humming sound. Dr. Lee had explained that this was how they dealt with pain. The crystal people were actually vibrating their bodies to try to reduce the stress on their structure. In the water section, Fluvius was moving his gills faster and faster. His blue-green skin was starting to turn gray around the edges. Skitter Six was now holding one of his damaged legs off the ground entirely, balancing on only 5 legs instead of 6. But the most shocking thing was that none of the other aliens seemed surprised by this suffering. They acted like it was perfectly normal for people to be in pain during council meetings. War Prime Zethos noticed Minho watching everyone. "Do you see now why we are angry?" he said loudly enough for others to hear. "You humans sit comfortable while we suffer for tradition. You mock our pain with your privilege." "We do not mock anyone," Minho replied calmly. "But maybe the tradition is wrong if it causes so much suffering." This made many aliens very angry. The crystal beings sang out sharp notes of disagreement. Several of the furry species growled and showed their teeth. "You cannot change tradition," shouted a delegate from the heavy world Storek people. "Our ancestors created these ceremonies for good reasons." "What reasons?" Jiwan asked. She had stood up to face the angry aliens. "What good reason is there for making people hurt themselves?" "To show strength," War Prime Zethos replied. "To prove discipline, to demonstrate that we can endure hardship for the greater good." "But you are not showing strength," Dr. Lee said, quietly. "You are showing that you will hurt yourselves rather than question a rule that does not make sense." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Aliens were shouting in dozens of languages. The translator system was working so hard that it started to overheat and make strange buzzing sounds. High Speaker Kethnol raised one ancient hand, and slowly the room became quiet again. "The humans raise interesting questions," he said in his slow, careful voice. "Perhaps it is time to examine our traditions more closely." "There is nothing to examine," War Prime Zethos protested. "The ceremonies have worked for thousands of years." "Have they?" the High Speaker asked. His glowing eyes looked around the chamber at all the suffering aliens. "Or have we simply convinced ourselves that suffering is the same as strength?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. No one seemed to know how to answer it. Minho realized that they had stumbled onto something much bigger than a simple seating arrangement. The Council's most sacred traditions might be built on a foundation of hidden pain and ignored suffering. And somehow, humanity's presence was forcing everyone to confront that uncomfortable truth. As the meeting continued, Minho made a decision. He was going to find out why humans were really given the sitting privilege, and he suspected that the answer would change everything. Dr. Soman Lee found herself in the medical wing of Nexus Prime Station 3 days after the first council meeting. She had been invited by Dr. Thys, a Veltar healer who worked in the council's medical facility. Dr. Thys was different from High Speaker Kethanol, younger, with brighter blue skin and kind eyes that showed real concern for others. "I heard about what you did for young Kala," Dr. Thys said as she led Somin through the clean white hallways. "It was brave of your captain to break ceremony to help her. Captain Park could not just watch someone get hurt," Somin replied. "Is Kayla okay now?" Dr. Thys stopped walking and turned to face her. "That is what I wanted to talk to you about. Come, let me show you something that most people never see." They walked deeper into the medical wing, past the normal treatment, rooms where station visitors came for help. Dr. Thys used a special key card to open a door marked Authorized Personnel Only. Behind the door was another medical facility, but this one was much larger. There were dozens of treatment beds, strange machines that Soman had never seen before, and medical supplies for many different types of aliens. "What is this place?" Soman asked. "This is where we treat the council delegates after every meeting," Dr. Thys said quietly. "The injuries and health problems caused by the standing ceremonies. Soman felt her stomach drop. Injuries? How many? Dr. Thiss led her to a computer terminal and pulled up files that showed medical records going back hundreds of years. The numbers were shocking. In the last year alone, we have treated over 3,000 cases of ceremony-related health problems, Dr. Thiss explained. Muscle damage, circulation problems, respiratory failure, structural collapse in the crystal beings, gill infections in the water species. 3,000? Soman could barely believe it. But there are only about 850 species in the council. Many delegates get hurt multiple times, Dr. Thiss said sadly. Some species simply cannot handle the physical demands, but they keep trying because they believe it is their duty. Soman looked at the medical records more closely. She saw treatment reports for cracked crystal structures, damaged insect limbs, fish people with severe gill problems, and dozens of other injuries. Dr. Thiss, this is terrible. Why does no one talk about this? The Veltar healer looked around to make sure no one else was listening. Because it would be seen as weakness. The council leadership believes that if delegates admit the ceremonies, hurt them, other species will think they are not strong enough to be part of the government. But people are getting seriously hurt. I know, Dr. Thiss said. I have been a healer here for 50 years, and I have watched the injuries get worse as meetings get longer. Some of the older delegates have permanent damage from years of ceremonies. She showed Soman another set of files. These were marked with red warning labels. These are the worst cases, Dr. Thiss explained. Delegates who died from ceremony-related health problems. Soman felt sick as she read through the records. Hundreds of deaths over the centuries, all covered up and explained as natural causes or sudden illness. The families never knew the truth, Soman asked. They were told their loved ones died serving the council with honor, Dr. Thiss said, which is technically true, but not the whole truth. Meanwhile, Captain Jiwon Park was in the station's training facility, working out with some of the other military advisors who came with the council delegates. She had invited several of them to join her for what she called basic fitness training. Commander Vex of the Ketharani was there, along with shield-bearer Korath from the Heavy World Storek people and flight leader Zara from the bird-like Aeroth species. On Earth, human children do these exercises in school, Jiwon explained. As she demonstrated simple stretching and cardio movements, she started with jumping jacks, a basic exercise where you jump while moving your arms and legs. After just 30 seconds, Commander Vex was breathing hard. This is more difficult than it looks, Vex admitted, his red skin darkening with effort. Jiwon tried some basic running in place. Shield-bearer Korath, who was built like a walking tank and came from a world with heavy gravity, managed only 2 minutes before he had to stop. How long can humans do this? Flight leader Zara asked, her feathers ruffled with exhaustion after just a few minutes of light exercise. Human children can do this for hours, Jiwon said honestly. Adult humans can run for hours without stopping, if they need to. The alien military officers looked at each other with shock. Hours? Commander Vex repeated. Without stopping? Some humans run marathons for fun, Jiwon explained. That is running for over 4 hours straight, just for enjoyment. Shield-bearer Korath sat down heavily on a bench. His people were known as some of the strongest in the galaxy, but even he looked amazed. We always thought humans were weak because you have no natural weapons, he said slowly. No claws, no spikes, no thick armor. But this endurance, this is a weapon we did not understand. Flight leader Zara was thinking hard. If humans can exercise for hours, then standing in the council chamber would be easy for you. Standing, Still is actually harder than moving, Jiwon admitted. But yes, humans can stand for many hours without serious problems. That evening, Ambassador Minho Kim was in his quarters studying the council files when he received an unexpected message. High Speaker Kethnol wanted to meet with him privately. Minho went to the High Speaker's private chambers, which were decorated with ancient artifacts from hundreds of different worlds. Kethnol was floating in his meditation pose, but his eyes were open and focused on Minho. "Sit, please," the ancient being said. "We have much to discuss." Minho sat in the offered chair and waited. High Speaker Kethnol was quiet for a long time, as if he was deciding how much to say. "You have been asking questions about our traditions," Kethnol finally said. "Yes, High Speaker. I am trying to understand why humans are treated differently." "And what have you discovered?" Minho chose his words carefully. "I have found that the standing ceremonies cause pain and injury to many species. I have also learned that there are medical records and historical files that are hidden from most people." Kethnol nodded slowly. "You are observant. Your species often is." "High Speaker, why are humans allowed to sit when others must stand?" The ancient Veltar was quiet for another long moment. When he spoke, his voice was filled with something that sounded like regret. "Because when we tested your species for endurance, as we test all new council members, the results were unprecedented." "What kind of test?" "The same test we give everyone. We asked your representatives to demonstrate that humans could follow our protocols. We asked them to stand through a full ceremony." Minho waited for more explanation. "They stood for 14 hours, Kethnol said quietly. 14 hours without sitting, without complaining, without showing any signs of serious distress. Minho felt a chill run down his spine. 14 hours? The longest any other species has ever managed was 6 hours, and that nearly killed the delegate. Most species collapse after 1 to 3 hours, so you gave us the sitting privilege. Because we realized that asking humans to follow the standing protocol would expose how harmful it is to everyone else," Kethnol finished. "Your species would stand there comfortably while others collapsed around you. It would make the suffering of all the other species impossible to ignore." Minho understood now. The sitting privilege was not an honor. It was a cover-up. "How long has this been going on?" he asked. "The harmful effects of the ceremonies have been known for centuries," Kethnol admitted. "But changing tradition is difficult. Many species see the suffering as proof of their dedication, even when it kills them." The High Speaker's glow dimmed slightly. "Even then." Minho left the meeting with his mind racing. Humanity had stumbled into the middle of a conspiracy of silence that had lasted for hundreds of years. And now that they were here, the truth was becoming impossible to hide. The next morning, Dr. Soman Lee made a discovery that changed everything. She had been given permission by Dr. Thess to review the historical medical files, and what she found in the oldest records made her hands shake. The standing ceremony had not always been a tradition. In the early days of the council, it had been created as a punishment. "Look at this," she told Minho and Ji-won when they met for breakfast. She showed them her tablet with the ancient files. 1,000 years ago, there was a huge fight in the council chamber. Several species started a war right there in the meeting room. The files showed images of the old chamber, which had been destroyed in the violence. Dozens of delegates had been killed when different species began fighting each other during a heated debate about trade rights. After that disaster, the council, Leaders were desperate to prevent more violence, Somin continued. They decided that if species had to prove physical self-control by standing still for hours, it would make them too tired to fight. Jiwon frowned as she read the old documents. So they created the ceremony to exhaust the delegates before meetings? Exactly. The idea was that tired, uncomfortable delegates would be more focused on the discussion and less likely to start fights. Minho felt sick as he understood what this meant. So for 1,000 years, the council has been deliberately weakening and hurting delegates before every meeting. And over time, people forgot the real reason, Somin said. The ceremony became religious, tradition instead of a control method, but the harmful effects never went away. That afternoon, Dr. Somin Lee was in the medical bay when she witnessed something that broke her heart. She had been helping Dr. This treat delegates after the morning session when the emergency alarm sounded. Incoming medical emergency from Council Chamber 7, the station's computer announced. Dr. This moved quickly toward the emergency treatment room. Another collapse, she said grimly. It happens more often now as delegates get older and meetings get longer. The patient was Delegate Shimmer Dance from the crystalline hive. The crystal being had literally cracked under the pressure of standing for hours. Her beautiful rainbow-colored surface was now crossed with dark lines where her structure had failed. The fractures go deep, Dr. This explained as she worked. Crystal beings are not meant to support their weight in one position for so long. Their internal structure is designed for movement and vibration. Somin watched as Dr. This used special tools to repair the cracks, essentially gluing Shimmer Dance back together. The process looked painful, even though crystal beings experienced pain differently than other species. How many times has this happened to her? Somin asked. Dr. This checked the medical records. This is her 16th major structural repair. She has been a delegate for 20 years. In another room, Ambassador Deep Current of the Murdani was receiving emergency treatment. His water suit had malfunctioned during the ceremony, and his gills had been damaged by breathing stale recycled water for too long. Will he be okay? Somin asked. He will live, Dr. This said. But his gills will never work as well as they did before. This kind of damage adds up over time. Meanwhile, Captain Jiwon Park was dealing with a challenge of her own. War Prime Zethos had confronted her in the station's main corridor, demanding what he called a test of strength. You humans think you are so special, Zethos said loudly, attracting the attention of other aliens in the area. Your people break our ceremonies and mock our traditions. I challenge you to prove that humans deserve their privileges. Jiwon tried to avoid the confrontation. War Prime Zethos, I have no desire to fight you. We are all on the same side here. Afraid? Zethos taunted. The human warrior is afraid of a fair fight? Several other aliens had gathered to watch. Jiwon realized that backing down would make things worse for human relations with the Council. But she also knew that Zethos did not understand what he was asking for. Very well, she said calmly, but let us make this a proper test. Combat training rules. First to pin wins, no permanent damage. They moved to the training facility, where a crowd of curious aliens gathered to watch. Zethos was confident and aggressive, flexing his 4 powerful arms and showing off his natural spikes. Kethrani warriors are the strongest in the galaxy, he announced to the crowd. This human will learn respect for superior species. The fight started fast. Zethos rushed forward with incredible speed and power, his 4 arms striking like hammers. Jiwon dodged and moved, letting him attack empty air. For 30 seconds, Zethos was overwhelming. His attacks were so fast and strong that if any of them had connected, they would have seriously hurt Jiwon. The watching aliens cheered for what looked like an easy Kethrani victory. But then, something changed. Zethos began to slow down. His breathing became heavy. His powerful attacks started to miss by wider margins as he lost precision. Jiwon, meanwhile, was barely breathing hard. She continued to move smoothly, waiting patiently for her opportunity. After 2 minutes, Zethos was gasping for air. His red skin had turned almost purple from effort. His 4 arms were shaking with exhaustion. "How?" he panted, confusion clear in his voice. "How are you not tired?" "This is just warm-up for humans," Jiwon said gently. "We are built for long fights, not short ones." When Zethos stumbled from exhaustion, Jiwon moved quickly but carefully. She caught him as he fell and lowered him gently to the training mat, technically pinning him, but making sure he was not hurt. The watching aliens were silent with shock. The mighty Kethrani warrior had been defeated not by superior strength or speed, but by simple endurance. "Impossible," whispered Commander Vex, who had watched the whole fight. "Kethrani warriors train for combat from childhood. How can a human outlast one of our best fighters?" Shield-bearer Korath of the Storek spoke up. "On our world, we are taught that strength comes from power, but maybe we have been wrong about what strength really means." That evening, Ambassador Minho Kim called an emergency meeting with his team. They gathered in their private quarters to discuss what they had learned. "We have a serious problem," Minho began. "The Council's most important traditions are built on making people suffer, and our presence here is making that impossible to ignore." Dr. Soman Lee shared her medical findings. "The injury rates are getting worse every year. Delegates are getting older, but the ceremonies are getting longer. Some species simply cannot keep up anymore." Captain Jiwon Park told them about her fight with Zethos. "Word is spreading about human endurance capabilities. The other military advisors are starting to understand that we are physically very different from everyone else. High Speaker Kethnal told me that humans stood for 14 hours during our entry test," Minho said. "That is why we got the sitting privilege. Not because we are honored, but because we would expose how harmful the ceremonies are to everyone else." They sat in silence for a moment, processing the full scope of the problem. "So what do we do?" Jiwon asked. "If we follow the standing protocol, we will make everyone else look weak. If we keep using the sitting privilege, we look arrogant and disrespectful. And if we do nothing," Somin added, "people will keep getting hurt and dying for a tradition that serves no good purpose." Minho stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there were hundreds of worlds whose representatives came to the council and suffered in silence, believing that pain was the price of participation in galactic government. "We are going to tell the truth," he said finally. "All of it, even if it means changing everything." "That could destroy the council," Jiwon warned. "If everyone learns that their most sacred traditions are actually harmful, it might break apart the whole government." "Then maybe it needs to be broken apart," Minho replied. "And maybe we can help build something better in its place." The next council session was in 2 days. Minho knew that whatever they did then would determine not just humanity's place in the galaxy, but the future of the council itself. The morning of the next full council session, Ambassador Minho Kim stood in front of his mirror and made a decision that would change galactic history. Instead of putting on his formal diplomatic robes, he dressed in simple, comfortable clothing that would be easy to stand in for hours. "Are you sure about this?" Captain Jiwan Park asked as they walked toward the council chamber. She and Dr. Soman Lee were also dressed simply, prepared for what they all knew would be a very long day. I am sure, Minho replied. We cannot keep pretending that everything is normal when we know how much suffering these traditions cause. Word had spread throughout the station about the events of the past few days. The fight between G1 and War Prime Zethos was being talked about in every corridor. Dr. Salman Lee's medical research was creating quiet discussions among the alien delegates. Everyone seemed to sense that something important was about to happen. When they entered the council chamber, Minho did something that shocked everyone present. Instead of walking to his designated seat and sitting down, he stopped in the center of the room and remained standing. The entire chamber fell silent. Hundreds of alien eyes focused on the human ambassador who was standing in the middle of the floor, clearly not planning to take his privileged seat. High Speaker Keth Knoll looked down from his platform with surprise and what might have been concern. Ambassador Kim, please take your designated seat so we may begin the ceremony. High Speaker, Minho said in a clear voice that carried throughout the chamber. With respect, I choose to stand today. A wave of confused murmurs swept through the room. War Prime Zethos stood up from his section, his red skin darkening with anger. What game is this, human? Zethos demanded. First you mock our traditions by sitting, now you mock them by standing. I am not mocking anything, Minho replied calmly. I am trying to understand what strength really means. He turned to address the entire chamber. For the past week, I have been learning about your traditions. I have learned about the courage and dedication you show by participating in these ceremonies. But I have also learned something else. Dr. Soman Lee and Captain Jiwan Park moved to stand beside their ambassador. Then something unexpected happened. Other humans in the gallery, station workers, visitors, and staff, began to stand as well. One by one, every human in the chamber rose to their feet. I have learned, Minho continued, that true strength is not about enduring pain. It is about having the courage to question why the pain exists at all. High Speaker Keth Knoll began his traditional meditation pose, starting the ceremony that would require everyone to stand for hours. But this time, the humans were standing by choice, not protocol. As the minutes turned to hours, the usual pattern began. Aliens around the chamber started to show signs of distress. But this time, something was different. This time, there were humans standing among them who were not suffering at all. Minho had been speaking for almost 2 hours about cooperation, understanding, and the need to help each other rather than prove individual strength. His voice was steady, his posture remained straight, and he showed no signs of fatigue. Near the water section, Fluvius was beginning to sway in his heavy water suit. In the crystal area, several beings were starting to show stress fractures. The bird-like delegates were drooping their wings with exhaustion, but the humans remained upright and alert. Captain Jiwan Park stood as easily as if she were taking a casual walk. Dr. Soman Lee was taking notes on her tablet while standing, completely comfortable. The contrast was becoming impossible to ignore. Do you see? Minho asked the chamber. Do you see that we can stand here without pain while you suffer? Is this the strength you want to celebrate? The strength to watch others hurt while we remain comfortable? Young Kayla, the Zephyrian diplomat, was beginning to wobble again. Without hesitation, Captain Jiwan Park moved to support her, helping the bird-like alien to remain upright without breaking protocol. This is what real strength looks like, Jiwan said loudly enough for everyone to hear. Not the ability to endure suffering, but the ability to prevent it. Dr. Soman Lee spoke up from her position. I have studied your biology, your medical records, your histories. You are not weak because these ceremonies hurt you. You are strong because you have endured them for so long. But enduring unnecessary pain is not strength. It is just pain. Around the chamber, more aliens were beginning to collapse. Delegate Shimmer Dance was developing new cracks in her crystal structure. Ambassador Deep Current was struggling in his water suit. Even War Prime Zethos was breathing heavily, his red skin showing the strain. But still the ceremony continued, because tradition demanded it. Minho made his final point. High Speaker, honored delegates, I ask you this. If the purpose of these ceremonies is to show respect and discipline, what does it say about us that we force each other to suffer for it? What does it say about strength when we measure it by who can hurt themselves the longest? The chamber was filled with the sounds of labored breathing, stress signals from various species, and the quiet hum of medical equipment that Dr. Thies had started bringing to council sessions. High Speaker Kethanol, still in his meditation pose, slowly opened his ancient eyes. For a long moment, he stared at the humans who stood comfortably among the suffering aliens. Then he looked at the delegates who were clearly in pain, but continued to endure because tradition demanded it. Enough, he said quietly. Then, louder, enough. The ancient Veltar rose from his meditation pose before the traditional time was complete, breaking thousands of years of protocol. The protocol of endurance, he announced in a voice that carried clearly through the chamber, was born from fear and maintained by pride. Today, we learn that true strength lies not in the ability to endure suffering, but in the wisdom to end it. A collective gasp rose from the assembled delegates. High Speaker Kethnol had just abolished the most sacred ceremony in council history. From this day forward, Kethnol continued, all delegates may sit immediately upon entering council chambers. We will measure our strength not by how much pain we can endure, but by how much good we can accomplish together. The chamber erupted in sounds of relief. Delegates collapsed into their seats, some crying from exhaustion and emotion. Medical teams rushed in to help those who had been injured during the final ceremony. War Prime Zethos, breathing heavily in his seat, looked up at Minho with an expression that was no longer angry. Human, he said slowly, I misjudged your people. I thought your privilege made you weak, but you used your strength to protect others, not to prove your superiority. That is what strength should be for, Minho replied, finally sitting down in his own chair. To lift others up, not to prove we can stand while they fall. Over the following months, the council underwent massive changes. The new seating protocols were just the beginning. Medical stations were set up in every council chamber. Meetings were redesigned to include regular breaks. Most importantly, the culture began to change from one that valued endurance of suffering to one that valued prevention of suffering. Dr. Soman Lee worked with Dr. Thies to establish new medical standards that considered the needs of all species. Captain Jiwan Park started training programs that taught alien military officers about cooperation and mutual support rather than individual endurance. Ambassador Minho Kim found himself leading a committee to redesign council traditions, working with representatives from every species to create new ceremonies based on cooperation rather than competition. The special notation in the council records remained. Humans were still officially the only species allowed to sit first in council chambers. But now it served as a reminder rather than a privilege, a reminder that sometimes the greatest honor is not standing apart from others, but choosing to sit together as equals. War Prime Zethos, now a close friend and ally, often joked that humans were still crazy enough to stand when they could sit. But he always added that maybe that kind of controlled craziness was exactly what the galaxy needed. Beings who were strong enough to be gentle and wise enough to know when strength should be used to protect others rather than prove themselves. Years later, when new species joined the Council, they would learn the story of why humans had been given their special privilege, and how they had used that privilege to change the galaxy for the better. The lesson became part of Council education. True power is not the ability to endure suffering, but the wisdom and courage to end it. And in the newly redesigned council chambers, where comfortable seating accommodated every type of alien biology, a small plaque bore a simple inscription: "Strength through compassion, unity through understanding." The age of proving worth through pain was over. The age of proving worth through kindness had begun.